we can't actually not hit the mark because we have so many people involved.
I failed a lot, and I'm hoping that I can help other people not go through some of those failures.
This is a fantastic opportunity for all of us to come together, lift that tide. This gives them a head start.
The collaboration with the community is going to help us solve these problems.
All right, this next generation, this community needs to learn from that and move forward and say, okay, let's not be in a bubble.
Okay, this is something I want to be a part of.
Technology come up is not for the sake of technology, it's really serving a purpose.
Because as you said, the industry is growing and it's growing fast.
How do we as an industry help each other in educating our own staffs and elevating the product of all of us, really?
This group as a voice can start to talk about, this is how we would like things to be.
Like, we want people that are in this community that are actually interested in making change to get involved. Alrighty, good afternoon. Day 2. It's been a lot of fun so far. Lots of great presentations. I've been enjoying the content. How about you guys? Good?
Been a good, loving it.
So fun. Nice, absolutely. Well, we up here are very excited about committees. Some of us have been working behind the scenes on trying to build out the vision for these committees over the last 2 years, I think it's been. And sometimes you start a project and it takes maybe longer to get off the ground than expected, but I think that's okay. I think massive change we can't expect to be overnight. And I think that's what our goal is really with these committees is transformation. It's not just, hey, we have an idea of something we want to create. It's an ongoing organization really is what we're creating here. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we started. We'll keep that brief because what we really want to talk about is where we have gotten to today, the current committees that are on, launched, the ones that are coming up, some of the projects we're working toward. So those that are interested in getting involved have an idea of where we at, where we headed, and what are the goals with these committees. So to get started, we will do some introductions. So we'll go ahead and start down on this end.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Again, I'm Josh DeStefano. I'm with DPR Construction. Been in the industry for 23, 22 years, something crazy like that. Background in VDC and reality capture. And I'm just honored to be a part of this team and talking about this.
Thank you.
Excited to talk about our progress.
For those that don't know me, I'm John Niles. I've been in the business for about, over 30 years. I quit counting after 30. I'm with,
maybe I'll quit counting that too.
I've worked for a company called Answer Advisory, which is part of Accenture. And we help owners figure out digital transformation. So how do we apply all this technology that you're seeing out here on the floor today? And how do we help owners figure that all out? So just really honored to be here and chance to help the committees grow out.
Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas Czerniawski. I'm an applied machine learning scientist with integrated projects. I'm working to automate Scan-to-BIM. Before that, I was also a professor at Arizona State University, so I'm super passionate about tech, super passionate about education. And for anyone that's kind of pioneered in a space like this, you know how important community is. So super excited about committees.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bray Tucker with Tucker Technology Consulting. I've also been in the industry over 20 years, started off as a skyscraper architect, and I'm now just fully embedded in tech and what I can do with the industry with kind of the power of the right tools. I'm really excited about this committee's project because I've been in a lot of really terrible professional organizations, and I think what's great about this side of the stage is that we're all trying to take our experiences from places like the Digital Twin Consortium or BIM Smart or any of the other organizations that are out there, and we're trying to do something very different with how this one is structured all the way at its core. And so I've really enjoyed being a part of that process where we're trying to take all of our lessons learned from the different groups that we've been a part of, try to make something much more meaningful with this one.
Appreciate it. I will mention we had one more person on our committee advisory board. So all of these have been working behind the scenes on foundation building for this, bringing that past experience. We had one more that wasn't able to be on the panel today, but Lissa, she is here at the event though, so you might meet her. I appreciate all the help because I've actually never been a part of other organizations like that. So though I started this idea of like, I want to do these committees, I see the things that we could work toward creating, and I've heard of and watched some other organizations from afar. It's also a challenge of like, well, if you've never done it, how do you build it? So getting the experience you guys have brought has been very helpful. And then we'll jump over to this side, which is very proud to welcome you guys for the first time this year as our first leaders of a first committee that we launched. So actually give them a hand for stepping up and volunteering as our leaders.
Yeah, so hello. Am I on? Okay, I'm on, sorry. My name is Sean Doyle. I'm the Director of Integrated Design at Bond Building Construction. We're a CM firm out of Boston, medium size, just under $1 billion a year. I came up through the ranks co-developing with my staff our in-house reality capture services, scan to BIM, everything from airport terminals to residential houses and everything in between. And so I helped spearhead that group. I've kind of moved on to a more hybrid role in the design side in recent years, but certainly very much involved in our reality capture and scan to BIM pursuits and efforts. And I am the chairman of the first committee, the LiDAR and Laser Scanning Committee. So thank you for having me.
All right.
I am Sean Lewis, the better Sean.
Older's not necessarily better.
Fair enough.
Our committee is fun. Okay, anyways, keep going.
I'm the co-chair for the Laser Scanning and LiDAR Committee. I'm a licensed surveyor in the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia. I've previously ran reality capture groups at two of the largest GCs on the East Coast, and now I currently am back into the civil survey world where I run a geomatics group out of Metro DC.
Hi everyone, my name is Tianyue Yu. I'm the co-chair of the LiDAR committee here, and I'm a founder and CEO of Q3D Sensing. We're a startup company in Silicon Valley, Northern California. At Q3D, we develop mobile 3D digitization solutions that can provide real-time, large-scale, photorealistic 3D captures that happen on the edge device on the mobile phone. And with our 3D sensors that is lightweight and compact, that you can imagine that can be used for handheld, for drones, for wearables on the head, on the clothes, and on robotics that can be used for many different use cases. And our mission is to really push the boundary of spatial AI by making 3D technology accessible for everybody, as much as like a 2D imaging that we have in everybody's pocket. So here at the committee, I'm very excited to be part of such a great team and really work together to shape the future of reality capture.
Love that. Well, thank you. I think one thing that's nice, we didn't hand select leaders. I know we're going to dig into this a little bit, but even just while we're at it, I want to mention it. Just hearing you guys even introduce yourselves, right? The way that we got leaders for this committee was we opened up applications for those that were that saw what we were trying to do with committees, heard the vision, and we said, if you are interested in helping lead and you have the capacity, you have the interest, you see the vision, apply to help lead one. And, we had quite a few applications, and we let the leadership applicants vote amongst themselves after they met virtually and talked about backgrounds and shared, why they're interested in participating. We let them vote amongst themselves, and they placed themselves. We didn't pick. So we tried to let it be even the community picked the people to help lead the community. But one thing that I think is very neat and unique about the three leaders that are here is the different backgrounds, right?
Yep.
Coming from construction, coming as a user, integrating it in your own design projects, coming from a survey background, understanding accuracies, talking about control side, coming from development, understanding the hardware. And so as a committee that's working toward solving problems around laser scanning and LiDAR, we're getting a little bit of everything from that leadership team. And even those that then are participating in the committee, very diverse backgrounds, very different experience levels. And we'll dig into that some more, but...
Teaser, it set us up great for the focus group idea.
Perfect.
Amazing how we started. So teaser in a couple of minutes. We'll talk about what that means.
So we'll jump ahead some slides here. We do have some visuals and things to talk to.
There it goes.
We'll keep this part brief. The committee roadmap, about 2 years ago, we came up with the idea. We said, why are committees important? We all struggle with technologies. There's all these problems we've been talking about all week already of so many technologies. How do we use them? What are the challenges? And the fact that right now everybody tries to solve them on their own, and we can come to the conference and we can talk about them. We can present about the problems. But then we all go home and we're working on our own projects and we stop communicating until we come back to the conference and talking about it again. The idea of the committees is it's a way to actually collaborate on an ongoing basis, apart from just an event, and actually get together and solve the problems. That is the goal of the committees. And the other thing that I think is unique and yet challenging is there are other organizations out there that I believe have taken on the initiative of trying to solve individual problems for individual technologies, maybe around digital twin, maybe around UAV. But they also then, I think, kind of create this silo where maybe they're solving one problem. Something that we said is we're trying to focus on all these technologies and how they work together. So our ultimate goal is launching a committee around each technology group. So laser scanning LiDAR being the highest voted for one, but next we're talking about digital twin, next we're talking about UAV, because ultimately we then want those committees to collaborate together, because how does survey integrate with scanning and scanning into models and that whole ecosystem? So it's a long roadmap, but we have it kicked off and we got the first one in place. So
we're working on it. We're getting there. We're putting the roadmap together.
Let's move to the...
Yeah, sorry, it's not working great here. There we go.
So I'll let Bray, maybe you talk about this a little bit. We kicked off and did the brainstorming session. Maybe give some feedback on how this thing went.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what was interesting about how this started was trying to take like everything that's potential that you could work on and then trying to find interest. And one thing that I really care a lot about, especially when you're working with volunteer teams, is finding the things that people are already interested in working on, because in that effort to then, turn in real work for white paper research or for case studies, it's coming from the heart in a place where like they actually want to find answers together. So John and I have had some experience on Digital Twin Consortium, where it's always really great to find those other people that just have that itch that they can't help but scratch. And so I think what this represents is some of those itches. Where it's just things that people are all kind of gravitating towards as a place of interest. And actually, Thomas was the one that orchestrated this mural. So I'm going to pass it over to Thomas to talk about kind of the findings.
It's kind of a challenge. Like, how do you get 100 people to work together productively? Like, if we just invite everyone to a giant Zoom meeting and have them fight it out, it's not going to end very well. And so we've been playing around with this tool, Mural. It's kind of like an infinite canvas tool. Everyone goes in, you can put sticky notes down, you can put text, you can put images, you can then vote on things. It's quite versatile. And this was a map that I created of like every concept that I could think of that would be relevant to the laser scanning committee. And then this acted as a scaffold for that 100-person brainstorming meeting. Everyone went in, there was a list of instructions, and almost immediately people understood the assignment. They're just like, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to put my sticky notes and ideas all across this map of concepts. And then there was some voting, there was some narrowing down of like where are the hot spots, like where is the latent capacity and latent enthusiasm for different concepts. And this is what eventually evolved into the 6 focus groups that we have today.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So as we got selected as committee leadership, we had sort of a roadmap, I think, already from a starting point of, okay, these are the things that people are interested in, these are the things that people want to be working on. And sort of the inherent nature of this sort of heat map thing, we looked at sort of the topics, right, that we're kind of grouping into these. And some of them overlapped and some of them were maybe a little more refined. But we started looking at the things that people wanted to work on and started thinking about them vertically, really, in terms of like how do we take all 5 of these problems and start to maybe work on them at the same time. Right, so this is effectively really a project. Each of those bubbles sort of is something that could be a project, and some of them blurred, some of them extended, but really we started to notice sort of refined focuses. And so Sean, Tian, you and myself, we started to think, okay, well, how do we tackle this in a way that's going to be productive? And we started to stack them vertically. And we noticed that sort of these technology issues that people are hoping to solve kind of fall into one group. And then some of these are more focused on standardization and best practices and having sort of a commonality between service providers, all the way through business development, workforce development. I mean, there was a great panel yesterday on workforce development, how that's a gap in our industry. And we said, maybe these are more of a focus group structure. So, I went into Mural, great tool, I agree, Thomas, and stacked them, gave them a name, and we talked internally and said, maybe this is the right way forward for us, is in which we can basically, go ahead and take these tools and work on them with a refined approach. And how do we take a committee of 150 or 200 people and get them working in unison towards deliverables? And so what we came up with was this idea of the focus groups. And so the intent is really that between Sean, Tianyu, and myself, we'll sort of quarterback, for less of a better terms, projects within these focus groups and allow people to kind of pick and choose in ways that they're interested in, places that they want to be working on, and on things they want to be working on. And so it's sort of a narrow, refined focus for a moment, but collaboratively across all of the focus groups, you're getting a much better product sort of globally, which I think is really cool. And so I think we'll just, these are the 6 here. I think we'll just take a minute or two to kind of describe them. So as I mentioned, Sean, T, and you and myself are going to kind of take 2 of these and work with the people who are interested in those areas and start to come up with project roadmaps and start to develop work product that doesn't benefit just the people in the committee, but our industry on the whole.
Yeah. But
output.
Even before we dig into those, I actually want to pause real quick.
Yeah.
And I would like the 3 of you, since you guys applied to help lead one, right? And you're stepping into something that is new. And I'd love for each of you to actually say why you applied to lead and why you're in here helping run this. Because we also have, right? We're going to move into more committees. We're going to launch more committees. We're trying to, like we've talked about, if we don't inspire other people, why would they want to get involved? Yeah, I'd love to start with you guys and give a little bit of your thought about this effort and your involvement.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So that's bring back. I didn't know about RCN network. That's been 30 years here, right? But then that's my first year participating. So I've been in the 3D capture, 3D sensing for more than 10 years already, but then very much focusing on the building the 3D devices, especially also building the software solutions that is used for perception applications. So perception applications is somewhat different from reality capture applications here, where for the perception, then you segment what you see, and a lot of times you remove the background. You kind of throw away what you don't need. And then those applications are very much in the self-driving cars, robotics, in security, flow management applications, where you care about the movement of people, vehicles, objects. And then I came from that background and very much in the riding the wave of LiDARs, the proliferation of all the different LiDAR technologies, founded one previously and right with that. And then more recently, I founded this new company that's very much into the 3D imaging modeling. And then that start to, get to know about RC. And I said, wow, that's great. That's such a great organization and a very ground up, bottom up. And then I think that I can contribute, and I also have a lot to learn. I'm not a surveyor, I'm not the insiders per se, that a lot of you has already been using LiDAR technology for the past 10 years in those kind of mapping capacity. So there are a lot for me to learn. Also, I think I can also contribute here. So that's why proactively,
Awesome.
the drawing, trying to, work with the team. And then when we start to have a committee, trying to set up the committee, it happened to be laser scanning and the LiDAR committee. That's where the square center of where I anchor myself. So that's why I put my, hat in here, and then get chance to work with such a wonderful team.
Awesome.
Sean, number 2.
So I've always had a passion for laser scanning and LiDAR. I've also always looked at different committees and organizations and groups to get involved with, but none of them scratch that itch for me, whether it's ACEC, infrastructure, or something on wastewater management type things. And then when the launch of a laser scanning and LiDAR committee came up, I was like, this is something I want to be a part of. I'll never forget the first time I saw a laser scanner at an abandoned mental institution, St. Elizabeth's, down in DC, that was once a Civil War hospital at one point in time. And it was the I don't think it wasn't the Cyrax. It was the one where you could see the meter by meter green line that would just scan slowly across the building. I don't know if anyone has ever remembered that one, but it's super slow. But it was the first time I ever saw it. And then we got involved on a project in Union Station back when the Leica C10 was the best scanner out there. And that was the first time I was like, okay, this is something I want to be a part of. And since then, I've been dealing with laser scanning for 10, 15 years. I don't even know at this point. But I failed a lot. And I'm hoping that I can help other people not go through some of those failures that I had. So that's the reason why I wanted to join in on this committee.
That's like the mission statement.
Yeah, seriously. I feel bad for making fun of him now, actually.
Yeah.
It's a great answer, Sean. Yeah, so for me, I'll be honest with you, actually. I was kind of skeptical at first when I heard about it. I'm dead honest. And I was sort of lurking in the background of the meetings and sort of attending, but not really attending, but interested. And, I was like, it's great in theory, but are we going to get the people who really want to take time out of their day, their free, it's not even their free time, it's hard. Even now, I think everyone would agree it's hard because we have regular jobs we have to do too. And man, I signed in and there's 100 people floating around in the middle of the mural board, clicking around and putting in ideas and everybody's raising their hand to speak in the meeting and be involved and be engaged. And I went, wow, we might be onto something here. And to take it to the leadership point, I think for me, I realized, man, I've been doing this for over a decade. And we have always, as a firm, done a good job of presenting ourselves as knowledgeable and capable service providers in this industry. But to see kind of the engagement, I think I was like, I think we know a lot of stuff. We work in a lot of industries. We work in a lot of different sectors. I mean, we do gas, we do oil, we do healthcare, we do above ceiling, we do below ceiling, we do drone. So we kind of touched it on. I thought, maybe this is something I want to be involved in on a leadership side and sort of like bringing the right people together from an experience standpoint and a knowledge-based standpoint. And sort of what I do at work in my day-to-day right now is pulling the right pieces and technologies and people to the table to just collaborate and get something done. And so where I'm already inspired at work, I think, you guys mentioned sort of doing stuff that already inspires you, you're more apt to put the time into it. I'm already inspired at work in sort of my new role in being client facing and solving the issues of the client, but bringing the right people internally, whether it's a project manager or a superintendent or the architect and the engineer and sort of these collaborative work approaches that we don't really have in the Northeast. Taking that thing that's kind of driving my work day right now is that really intense collaboration. And so to manifest that in this committee, I think is special. And when I sat back and I thought about it, we've had USIBD, right? We've had LOA, we've had LOD, there's BIM Forum, there's all these other things. Like, we're missing that piece in this industry, in our market, in terms of what are the standards and certifications for laser scanning. So to be able to kind of be a part of that, I think was really exciting for me. I honestly did not expect to be the chairman. I put my hand forward and I was honored to.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't.
Wayne Gretzky / Scott, whatever you want to. But honestly, I'm pumped. I'm pumped because I think we've got a lot of great people. Some of them are in this room. Some of them couldn't make it, but a lot of great people putting in a lot of great ideas and taking the time to do stuff. And so, it's looking forward to starting to produce results. I think.
Well, we're excited to have you guys. I know we've got this slide up that has some of our overall sectors that we said, hey, these are the areas of, importance that have been identified by all the people that showed up and put in ideas and threw on those sticky notes. So I think right now, let's popcorn style a little bit between everybody and talk about some of these areas and why they're important and some of the examples of like, what are we actually going to be working toward on a project basis?
I can start, sure.
Yeah, go ahead. There you go.
So, I think what's interesting about all of these things that you see on here is when you think about this in the context of the LiDAR and laser scanning kind of like industry, professional certification is a thing that's a little bit nebulous. Technology integration is a thing that's super non-standard at the time. at this time. And so what I think is interesting is that this group as a voice can start to talk about this is how we would like things to be. And that's literally how it started with BIM Smart and OpenBIM, which then turned into an ISO, an International Standard Organization document, which is ISO 19650. It took like 15 years. So it takes a lot of time, but like this is how you start. And so that really actually gets me quite pumped up because the legacy of what's possible from a group of motivated people like this, it can lead to some really great, like literally globally affecting things. And then it also is going to attract, more technology partnerships with vendors. That's why I really like Tianyu's participation because she represents that voice. And that's a huge part of how you make any of this happen, right? So I think a lot of these things, even though when you look at it, maybe like right on the title, like professional certification, why does that matter? It's actually got a very, very deep meaning in terms of like what it can do for your profession, what it can do for the industry. And this is just in the context of laser scanning. So, the one that's going to be coming out next is digital twins, and that's in a space where Digital Twin Consortium is trying to lead that right now. And I think with that committee, there's going to be very different focuses that come out of that. So I think that's, those are very interesting when you think about each one of these having their own focus groups and what they could potentially do and how all of those grow into something really meaningful. But I'll leave it at that, pass it over here.
Yeah, I really gravitate toward, all of these are great areas to focus on, obviously. But the customer education piece, I think, is another one that I would highlight. And we talk about the technology, the process, the workflows, teaching the people how to manage it, do the work, the technical stuff. But if nobody knows how to use it, if our customers don't know what the value, like that becomes a massive roadblock.
Or how to procure it.
What's that?
Or how to procure it.
How to procure it, what to do with it, why it's valuable. The procurement piece is massive, right? It's like understand the end in mind. We used to talk about this with VDC, and I've talked about some of the parallels that I see with the adoption of BIM and VDC and reality capture, and that was a major sort of rut that we got into where these things developed. You've mentioned a few of them. LOD, for example, highly misunderstood in our industry, but a lot of it was owners trying to say, well, I want that, but I don't understand it very well. Give me if 400 is good, then give me a 450.
Yeah.
That must be better, right? And
but I don't want to pay.
I think we've got to learn from that as an industry and say, all right, this next generation, this community needs to learn from that and move forward and say, okay, let's not be in a bubble trying to, or silo or whatever you want to call it, to develop our skills and our technology without letting our end users understand the value of this. Because at the end of the day, they're probably the ones paying the bills, right? And so they really need to understand the value because, like I mentioned in the last panel, like we need to turn that push into a pull. And if we don't show them the value, they're never going to get there. And they're going to stumble just like they have with other stuff. So we can say, hey, here's what you need to know. I think that's going to be super important for adoption and movement forward.
So for me, it's, I'll be spearheading the workforce development piece. And what I think is great about that is it's two-pronged. One, it's for, I think we hope and aim to make content, training libraries, white papers, presentations, things that'll just sort of be globally available to folks who are already working in the, reality capture, geospatial industry that, you're bringing in a new hire and you want to train them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time when you're training programs. Maybe there are physical events that you attend and go to. We talked backstage about the boot camp thing. It's a great idea. So for the service provider who's in the space and they know what they're doing, but they're bringing in people who don't know what they're doing, to make a library of material that is easily available to share with their new staff to maybe self-learn or get them up to speed. That's a really interesting piece. But then maybe the even more interesting piece is maybe some of the topics the panel talked about yesterday about workforce development in terms of like how are we reaching across the aisle to universities and schools at all levels, college, collegiate, high school or lower, to be able to partner and educate that this is a path forward for somebody. Maybe somebody is interested in surveying, but they don't like running a total station. Well, this is a totally different animal, and so I think that's the part that I'm excited about. Is kind of focusing not only on how do we as an industry help each other in educating our own staffs and elevating the product of all of us really, but also how are we doing outreach outside of this industry to educate, train, and open a door and potentially a career in reality capture.
Yep.
I'm going to ask for a little bit of help from the audience. Raise your hand outside of your organization, so not something that you have internally. Raise your hand if you know the one place to go to for the best practices and standards for laser scanning. You know the organization. Raise your hand if you know that.
I can't see them.
Oh yeah, one in the back.
I want to let the record show that one person, and I'm going to have to catch up with you afterwards. I want to know what this place is that has the best practices and standards outside of your own organization, where that is. Oh, do we have another one?
IBD.
US IBD has LOA. That's what they have. So there's that, but there's not a complete thing of what to do. So when it comes to best practices and standards, you got to start with a deliverable at the end and then reverse engineer the workflows and how you get to that point. Yeah. So that's something that we're looking to get to. So then the next year, when we ask that question,
RCN steps.
Everyone in the audience is going to raise their hand.
Yeah, and to that point, John Stebbins is right. The LOA is there, but the big gap is we haven't taught people how to use it. Right back to the customer education piece. Our customers don't know how to use it. So even if we try to implement it, they're not speccing it out yet. So we've got to go and, educate folks on anything that we create.
As Sean was saying earlier, the way I learned the same way.
Sean?
Sean too. Sean Lewis. The way we learned was by going out and making mistakes, right? I remember doing a job on a Friday. I was lucky enough that I had rented the scanner and didn't need to turn it back in until Monday. So I had a chance to go back out and rescan everything because, frankly, the person who taught me did a pretty good job, but I missed some things, and I had to go back out there and do that. So that workforce development is critical. How do we get everyone on the same page? I often use the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Yeah, the US IDB kind of gets you there, but then you've got all this other stuff that plays into that. You've also got all the technology with the scanners, all the settings and everything else, setting up control and getting all that right. This is a fantastic opportunity for all of us to come together and lift that tide. So the next wave of folks that are getting into this business, and they're coming, right? It's only going to grow bigger. Mm-hmm. This gives them a head start so that they don't have to make the same mistakes that we've all made.
And the two that I'm most interested in are certifications and standards. Because as you said, the industry is growing and it's growing fast. Like internally at integrated projects, we have a mandate to 10x production. Like we're growing our scanning network globally. We're vetting scanning techs all the time. And there's just not a very good way of doing that. Like, yeah, I have experience. I kind of know what to look for, but it would be nice if there was just a certification we can rely on. And as a person that does automation, I work with machine learning algorithms. Like automated systems are very sensitive to the quality of data. Like if you send us something that isn't very good, like everything that I build and work with starts to break. And so just like, how do you ensure quality while you're scaling massively? Mm-hmm. That's the question.
Yep. And I think that's one thing that's unique about the community we have right now is we're getting people from every angle, right? We have people here who are at the conference because they've never scanned. And they're like, I'm here to explore the scanners and I want to get into it. I don't even know where to start. I don't know what device. Once I get a device, I don't know the workflow. But then we also have the massive global owners of assets that are here because they're saying, we believe in this technology so much, we want to map everything we own. But how do we tackle scanning facilities or buildings globally and know we're going to get similar results and similar accuracy and there's no one service provider who we can hire to go do all the facilities. And what happens if you now put out an RFP that's like, we need every building done? everyone's using different gear. Everyone has different workflows. You don't have a certification to know that, hey, if I hire this service provider, they know what they're doing. Of course, everyone says, I can scan it. And we all have seen real world examples. One project is like, hey, we need a scan done. Well, you get 3 quotes, and those are 3 different devices, one that costs $2,000, one that cost $100,000, one that was going to use control, one that was not. And so your quote on it was $4,000 to $50,000. And the owner, they're like, I don't even know why. So all of these different sections we're talking about, we're helping every section of the industry, the user, to understand technical workflows so they can scale their teams and be able to provide that support. And then on the opposite end, train the clients on what to ask for, what to look for, and work toward actual documents and actual processes to really help both sides of the coin.
I think one thing that's important, I know we've talked about this as a group, but, and right now I think a lot of our discussion is focused very much on AEC, but I see this community pulling folks from other industries. And, we've sat here for 20 years saying, oh, we shouldn't be siloed. And then we end up siloing ourselves. And we only talk to AEC people. But if you look at the innovation world, you got to learn stuff from other industries. You got to find out, what did they figure out? What problems did they solve? How did they solve those problems? Oh, mine is similar. Mine aligns with that. Maybe I can take that workflow. The Toyota production system, Agile, all of that stuff are great examples of things that came from something, a different industry, been adopted, and now it's just boring, to use my term from earlier, right? It's just integrated, it's in. So I think that's really important. I think there's other groups that have tended to focus on, a little bit too focused on our industry or a specific sector of the industry, and we've really got to be able to learn from folks that have done other things in other areas.
Yeah, and it does make it complicated, right? Like when we first launched this, we said, let's do every technology and every industry. Look, we got to innovate as we go. Maybe we shift things. At this point,
we know you're ambitious, Matt.
I'm sorry. You're welcome. At this point, a committee per technology makes absolute sense. But then as opposed to a whole committee per industry, it's, okay, each technology committee needs to have, sessions that talk about, okay, what is the best practice, right? If we're talking about laser scanning LiDAR, what is the guideline and best practice to capture a building versus an oil and gas facility versus a forensic scene because we have a diverse community, global community. Every industry is represented here. It's very heavily AEC. But our goal is to solve the technology problem, no matter who it is that's trying to implement it. And by doing so, we do get to learn from each other. So the fact that this week we're sharing stage with people that are in refinery and oil and gas and airports and high rises and home building and like every industry, we get to hear that feedback of like, what's working for you? Okay, we've never even seen that before. Let's consider, the collaboration with the community is going to help us solve these problems.
And I think, something we were talking about yesterday that's relevant here is this space is changing all of the time. So, the standards and writing standards, as an aside, is also a not easy task. You have to speak about everything with, no loyalty to one type of technology. You kind of have to have an open language that's agnostic to like the tools that you might use. And so it's hard to actually kind of find the language to just start speaking to means and methods. But I think what's interesting in this space, it changes so dramatically, like every 5 years. And now it seems like maybe even a little faster. It'll be fun. And I think, these committees are term-based. So, each leader that comes in, it's like the 3 leaders that you have here today, they've all signed up for a year for that term position. And then, then we're going to do the whole thing all over again. And the projects might keep going year over year. And I think that's something, too, that's like a very pragmatic thing to be okay with. Progress might be slow at first. But with things like this, once you start snowballing, that's when you start turning into some really like dramatic things where everyone is now just paying attention to what's coming out of these committee groups. And I think when there's enough of the other committees in play as well, there's going to be a lot of overlap. So like the Digital Twin Committee with LiDAR, I think that's fantastic that those are going to be our first 2, because as you saw yesterday, there's some impossible to answer problems in there of like what comes first, or what should you prefer, or how should you approach digital twins. And it's like there's going to be a lot of interchange there that I think will also be interesting, because those might be long-term projects as well, where you just keep publishing what the current perspective is, and we keep trying to break that down into like these are our standards. And this is how we're going to start talking about like LOD right now, as it is understood in the BIM world, kind of makes sense for the most part. There's some new stuff from ISO that just came out this year where they're trying to introduce many other types of like level of information, level of model detailing, level of, metadata detailing. It's like stuff like that for me is just like a little bit unnecessary. But at the same time, I get why people keep trying to have that conversation, because it's not the same. It's very hard to have apples to apples conversations on this like deep tech stuff. So I think that for this group, and like these initial projects that they want to work on, I think it's really great. The other thing that we didn't talk about that I'll mention right now, the advisory group, we're trying to stay out of everything in the committee. So the committee right now, it's these 3 people that are on stage. We're just trying to help in the background. We may end up leading a couple of the committees. We're hoping not to, because we would like you guys to do that. And I think that's something you can just like keep pinging us, like, how would you want to do it, or how would you set this up? Because I'd like to see other people step up and do it. I've already done it for other organizations, and this is a great time for everybody in RCN to participate and start leading the next sets of them.
Yeah. And, a lot of people talk about wanting to help us make change. But then when we create an opportunity to get involved, if you don't get involved, you don't actually want to help, right? Like, we want people that are in this community that are actually interested in making change to get involved. Like, we can't do it by ourselves. I couldn't run the committees unless I got a board to help me build it. We can't launch all these committees unless we get leaders to apply. They can't solve any of these problems unless the members show up every 2 weeks and start taking on projects. So it is only possible if people get involved in what we're trying to build, because this is all community driven.
I think to Bray's point as well too, right? Like, so, I mean, to establish standards and best practices, right? Like, that is not a monumental task, but also if you're going to do that, it needs to be the collective agreement and standard and practice that the community at large. Like, we can't have 5 people working on standards and best practices that says this is the best way to do it, agnostic of technology or hardware or software or whatever. You need a community to say, collectively 70% of us think that this is the best way forward, or the best way to do something, or the level of standard that we should be, the standard of care, to use the legal term, right? The standard of care that we are setting as a community. If 20 people decide that for the greater whole, that's not really what we're looking for either. So even if it's not running a project, even if it's not being committee leadership, being involved and using your voice and using this as a platform to speak up and share your expertise and share your lessons learned, we can't get there without, a bigger following, I think.
Yeah. And what's the absolute worst case? You learn a lot and you meet a lot of people. That's the worst case.
Social group.
Very social group. I'm going to go to that slide. Absolutely.
Yes.
So we have a few more slides. Let's just jump through a couple of these to just show some of the interest level. So, we had those groups broken out, right? And we had who, again, we start seeing these numbers and these who voted for what, but it's based on the people that showed up to some of these meetings or answered to some of the surveys to say, here's what we're interested in. So though we have, 200 people who have signed up to participate in committees, we have about between 30 to 50 show up to every single meeting every other week. So we hold these committee meetings every other week for an hour, and that's quite a few people right now that are there consistently. Yeah. We also know that this is taking time out of people's jobs. So we say, look, if you're a member, you don't have to be there every single meeting, but be there as much as you can. We understand that it's not your full-time job, right? If you have to miss a meeting, that's okay. The other 30 will show up. So come in and support as you can.
Even you miss meetings.
Yep. Yeah, you have to. That's why we have multiple leaders.
This was a great gut check for me. Of course, we rolled out this slide, going back just for a second. Like, we rolled this out to the committee and said, sort of a next step is we're going to survey you, right? We want you to give us feedback. Did we miss the mark here? Is this the right way to structure this? Did we miss a focus group that's just like, maybe we should, kind of break this off? Should we, if there was heavy interest in a lot of focus groups, maybe they got pared down. I think for us, like, at least when I kind of saw the results of the survey we had sent out, to see sort of a general even distribution of interest across all the focus groups made me think that we really hit the mark, right? We kind of had touched all the areas of the things that people want to work on. We had sort of established a couple of groups in which everybody wants to kind of put their best foot forward in a bunch of these. I think to see the professional certification sides maybe on the lower end there, that's not surprising because it's a very niche thing. It's a lot of hard work. It takes a long time, but still it's sort of in the average. It's in the median really of what people want to be working on. So I think what we established in terms of these focus groups and the work product that will come out of them, to have general interest across the whole board, it was great to not have to delete one of those.
Yeah, well, and all of this makes sense because, right, the people that are, well, actually, I'll go back one second because you were saying, it looks like we hit the mark on what things need to be worked on. We can't actually not hit the mark because we have so many people involved.
Right.
We have such a large community of people that are doing this that if everybody's participating, we can't miss a subject. Everybody is sharing what the pain points are. So we know all of them. We're not in a silo saying like, hey, what do I think is important? What are you struggling with?
Right.
If everybody is submitting ideas, that's how we get to change and improvement so fast. Like I talked about it in the very beginning, right? If one of us tries to see where can we get in 5 years, we're going to be down here. If we all talk together and talk about how to get there, it's going to be 10x what would have been possible. But these also make sense because you look at the number one voted for one is technology integration.
Yep.
That's what people are struggling with. And so they don't care about a certification yet because they're like, I just want to know how to use the tool. I'm struggling. So we naturally will work toward those things.
And conversely, what is the quality and standards that I should be keeping myself to, right, in the same time, right?
Yep.
I think I was going to mention a moment ago, while those are sort of refined focuses across the 6 focus groups, right, so much those lines were gray on that slide for intentionally, right, because you're going to establish something in one of those focus groups that is relevant to the standards and best practices group, and to share that information back and forth and collaborate on the whole, work in a breakout setting and then collaborate on the whole and share that information, right? And all the projects are going to they're going to, and then very quickly as things are sort of established. And so, right, that technology integration and standard best practice thing, like on a surface, you can look at those as 2 working groups, but really it's absolutely critical that they are working together and sharing information back and forth, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. So like 3 of us, we divide and conquer, and I'm more like one slide back, I'm more on the technology integration and the business development groups, like 2 focus groups, and Sean are the other 2 groups. So basically, as we can see, that technology integration is such a high level of interest because that's a foundation of everything else. This is really at the ground level. And we will, as part of the mission for the committee, that's very much into education, communication, which actually means we dissipate the knowledge and dissipate a lot of the best practices with other groups too. And the technology moving so fast, and then AEC industry as a whole is relatively at the pace that's slower than technology moving forward. So that's why a lot of times you will, the projects spend many years. This morning we even heard, like at the beginning of the project and the end of project, you actually start to use different tools, right, different systems. So we really need to have, our goal for the focus group here is really to work together with all the committee members and trying to categorize, or as much as possible, trying to pull the state-of-the-art technology and organize it in a way and communicate, educate, and then allow the broader community members to be aware of what's coming up and at the stage of the technology. Technology come up is not for the sake of technology, it's really serving a purpose, right? So then technology maturity and where they are serve different use cases. Some are better fit like for certain technology versus others. So these are all the areas we will work together to dissipate the knowledge. And then a lot of that also tied to the business development, because we are all running businesses, our customers also running business. So that's really talking about how we organize the information to enable the business owners, whether ourselves or our customers, mostly trying to convey the return of investment, because all these were not running charities, right? So that's really on the customers, what type of technology adoption can bring what level of investment on the money you spend. So a lot of those also then tie into the customer education, right? How do you convey that information to the customer, to the broader base, and how do you argue about certain new technologies or not invest in new technologies? Right?
Yeah. So for time's sake, I have to fast forward us a little bit. I know we have a couple more slides. So, we're looking for more people that are getting involved to come in and help lead underneath the leaders of the committee to help run an individual project. You can see how many people submit to lead a project right here. Where's the workforce development panel again? We need a leader
I guess it's going to be me.
to come to a project. There's areas to get involved, whether from member, whether from project leader. And again, for time's sake, let's skip slides again.
I'll just say just quickly. Yep. So, what we are asking, right, is especially for somebody who's probably on the fence about project management, maybe you're not the most social person and generally typically don't like to be in sort of that focal spotlight type of thing. I think the environment that we're building for this, in which you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, is I would encourage those who are like seeking opportunities to take on maybe a little bit of a next step in terms of leading a team or a project. I mean, we're working at such a small scale right now. This is a great opportunity, I think, for anybody who's like, maybe like, I want to put myself out there a little more. And I think that will help tick these numbers up. I think a lot of people inherently are like, I don't really want to have to coordinate with another team member and call this guy on the West Coast and say, hey, can you get me something? This is a great opportunity for a safe environment to kind of, I think, work on that skill set. So, I would encourage people definitely to try to jump in. But let's just talk about where we're going ahead, and I'll talk about this quickly before we do our big reveal. So I think we talked about how we got here. The focus groups are set. We have a general knowledge of who's going to help us on sort of a project leader type of role. And so, really in the next steps is for the next month and a half is to really start to roll out our project roadmap, right? It's to kind of sit down together, talk about, okay, what are the projects that we want to come out of each of these focus groups? Just dump them on a mural board, right? In no particular sequence. And then once we have them, we can start to sequence them and layer them and try to put timelines to them across all the focus groups and start to sort of roadmap where we're going to go. And really, I think there are some low-hanging fruit deliverables that we can do, very quickly, very easily, that starts the snowball effect that Bray mentioned, right? Like, get some of these things done and out there. We've talked about maybe like a central nucleus of like different scanners, their accuracies, their capabilities, their costs. That's an easy one, right? We can work with the vendors, and once that's done, now maybe the best practices group starts to dive in on use cases for individual tools. So once we get that roadmap sort of overlaid, I'd say over the next month and a half, we'll really start to kick out deliverables early 2025. And the intent is not that, I think we have sort of a year term here. So next July, maybe we're passing the torch to the next people, but the roadmap on all the projects that we want to do will continue to develop for years. And some of those projects may literally never see an end.
Yeah.
Barry mentioned that very well before, where the standards, if we publish a document on standardization for laser scanning accuracy and density and whatever, that's going to continue to develop. Maybe there's a version 2025 and then a version 2027 and 29 and whatever seems to make sense with the industry. But, I think over the next few months, that's the key, really, is to kind of get the roadmap established, get folks providing input and data. I mean, we'll be sourcing data and deliverables and stuff like that to use, images and stuff like that with appropriate accreditation and stuff like that. I think that sets us up for a really productive spring and summer next year in terms of starting to get work product rolling and things out the door.
Really quickly, just on that, the thing that's so interesting, if your company decides to showcase your real world experience, there's nothing more valuable than that. Even if it's you try to do something and it didn't work, failures are actually the most important thing that we can start to gather as a group, because that's what we all learn from. That's what we're trying to save everybody else from having to do again. And so whether it was like too long to learn something or too expensive to implement something or just like it didn't work for whatever reasons, that kind of information is so invaluable, and your company can benefit from sharing that. So I think, that along with best practices, whatever your internal perspectives are on like different things that you've tried, that's exactly what we want. And even if you only come in and just participate for a little bit, those kinds of contributions are so, so important.
So again, for time's sake, yeah, we are excited about this. I mean, it's not. I don't feel like it's quite as big of a reveal as you said, but no, we look.
Take it.
I know. I took us back down. No, it is exciting. We are excited. We need somewhere that we can all, continue to be inside of as we work on these things, that we have running conversations, that's easy to find our events that are being scheduled. All the committee meetings are there. We are launching a Discord server. Some of you may have seen that we had a forum we were trying to run some of this on, but it was lacking features. So one thing we talk about a lot is innovation. So we innovated ourselves in the matter of a couple months and saying, look, instead of a discourse forum, we need to launch a Discord server so that we have a broken out section for every technology and solution that will have ongoing conversations. Our events are scheduled in there, so you don't have to look for, where do I sign up? Where's the meeting invite? Once you get onto this server, you just jump in there and there's ongoing conversation. There's meeting rooms where you just click and you join the meeting and your video and audio are there, and you click and you end. Like, everything is in one spot. It's never too late to get involved. Some people are like, oh, I didn't participate already. They already launched. No, there's new members signing up for committees every single day right now. You jump in when you can. We will introduce you to where we're at. We'll find a spot to plug you in. And then as this committee is launched and going, we're moving on to launch the next committee, which will be the Digital Twin Committee. We're going to do the same process we did with this one. We're going to open leadership applications. We're going to vet. We're going to launch. We're going to help get them on the path and get it running. And then they're going to move on, and we're going to launch the UAV committee. And this is going to be a continual process. And I'll say from my perspective, as far as how we're looking at this for RCN as a whole, is we want to find ways to also reward those people that are participating. We need you involved. We want to find a way to incentivize it, right? We want to, for this conference, we actually sent out a discount code for everybody involved with committees to get a discount on attending the conference. We're giving back to you who are helping the community and be involved. In the future, we'll let committee leaders have some of the speaking slots at our events. We will highlight and we'll do things like the webinars and the podcasts. And the whole community, the whole vision for RCN is community driven, right? We want to help you solve problems. We want you to help the community solve problems. So we'll continue to come up with things like this. We are out of time. I will say tonight on the football field, we are planning to have everyone here on the committee leadership team, the new committee leaders, to meet out on the blue field. So you can look for them. They'll have their little ribbon on their lanyards and stuff. And we look forward to having more of you involved as we move forward with this. So thank you, everybody.